icky. But in terms of human compost being used to grow a tree, to grow some flowers, to grow some grass, don't care, not bothered, unmoved. Now, if compost near the river of any sort presents an environmental concern, well, we need to talk about that, because human compost doesn't get special dispensation to be put someplace that you wouldn't put other compost if it's gonna be bad for you. Right? We wouldn't dump fertilizer into the San Joaquin River, would we? So why would we put compost in it? But we aren't putting compost in the river. We're putting compost, or we were putting compost onto a piece of San Joaquin River trust land. Not food, not near food, not in a place where the ick factor kicks in from my mind. So I think that if we're talking about this from a place of cultural and moral sensitivity, all right, whatever. You know, I don't have to be in lockstep with the rest of the community to respect that if enough people are squicked out by it, we shouldn't be doing it. Do I think that this argument is based on facts and logic? God, no. This is about bureaucratic infighting. This is about the conservancy and the trust and their respective leadership not getting along. And an icky thing that almost definitely should have been run up the flagpole before the plan commenced has become the cause. And so now we're going to waste more taxpayer time and more superficial energy on a non-issue. See, the state of California says that as of January 1 of next year, it will be lawful to place human compost onto private property and some public property, so long as it is not adjacent to food production. Which again, you get into the logic of the whole cycle, and eventually it's going to rain, and we've got groundwater, and on and on and on. And if we're being logical, then you got to take it back to find me a chemist who can show me the difference. If we give him a dozen random samples and 2 of them are human compost, will he be able to point to those samples? I don't think so. Based on what I'm reading, I don't think so. So we have hysteria leading to a solution in search of a problem. A board of supervisors that seems to be primed to regulating private behavior on private property because of their moral and cultural sensitivities. And a couple of agencies that need to just take care of the land they're supposed to take care of and do it like adults. This entire story is silly. Except for the ick factor. My God, the ick factor, it is so good for clicks. It is so good for attention getting, which is why the issue that was not the issue became the center of the story. Because the issue was the trust of the conservancy squabbling about who gets to control what. And somebody from the trust making a decision to do something that we all know damn well would have been controversial if it had been run up the flagpole and submitted for public response. Not because it's logical for it to be controversial, but because people get the ick when we talk about how we handle dead bodies. Look, I've spent time in the funeral industry. Not a lot, but enough to have a sense of it that I think most people don't get when your involvement with funerals is showing up to cry. The funeral industry takes the dignity of the deceased seriously. The men and women who do that for a living, they want for your loved one to be treated as well as they would expect their own mothers to be treated. And the composting process is not any more disrespectful than the cremation process. And frankly, it's less invasive and less traumatizing to those earthly remains than an intact burial. If you've ever seen the process for embalming a human body, that's abuse of a corpse. Letting that body return to the earth from which it came, that seems like a very normal, natural thing. But we aren't getting a normal, natural discussion. We're getting jumping up and down and screaming and the solution in search of a problem, while a couple of agencies that need to just take care of the damn property fight about who has to tell who what and when. So do I support or oppose allowing human composting near the river? I don't want it in the water. Not directly. That feels like that might be crossing a line. But in terms of the use of human compost in non-food plant growing, don't care. Doesn't bother me. And I respect you if you feel differently. lower courts, in fact, at least they screw their doors cost me more. These costs out of a concern to stay